And again, this strategy is a strategy for removing risk from a system. So of course, I like to say that the biggest risk that we all carry is not getting what we want out of life.
Define the barbell, building barbell wealth. What is barbell wealth?
Okay, so this was actually a concept originally written about by an author named Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He's a big fan of his work. And originally, this concept was written about by the Stoics thousands and thousands of years ago. And the phrase that they referred to it was a bimodal strategy for risk domestication, which is a lot of words. And so we've shortened it up to call it the barbell strategy. So everybody is probably that's listening to the show is familiar with a barbell. You've seen a barbell. I'd be willing to bet most people haven't seen a barbell where weight is loaded in the middle of the bar. When you're loading weight on a barbell, you either put it on one end or you put it on the other. And again, this strategy is a strategy for removing risk from a system. So of course, I like to say that the biggest risk that we all carry is not getting what we want out of life. So we use all of our investments, real estate, crypto, these different things that a lot of us invest in to help us ideally get closer to what we want in life. And so the barbell strategy is a way to remove risk from that. And so when I think of the barbell, I think of one side of the bar as my reliable, consistent, predictable part, right? It's highly stable. There's not a ton of upside, but there's also very low downside. For me, that's things like real estate. I don't know of a better way to build wealth long-term than through real estate. At least that's what I call my macro belief. So there's other things like, cash, gold. There's a ton of different ways, in my opinion, to have reliable, stable, consistent, generating wealth. So that sits on one side of the bar. On the other side of the bar, I like to look for opportunities to create asymmetric bets to the upside, meaning the upside is really big, the downside is very low. And of course, there's certain ways to approach that. For me, that's things like emerging tech. I'm an engineer. I sold tech to some of the largest companies for close to 10 years. And I found my way into the world of crypto and learning about blockchain and how we can integrate and use blockchain as real estate investors, how to earn passive income through things like this. And so, again, as I think about how I allocate my investments, I'm visualizing it as if it's on a barbell, and I'm trying to get things out of the middle of the bar. Things that maybe if I make this bet and it goes right, maybe we make a bunch of money and we build wealth. But if it goes wrong, we backtrack really far. Hopefully that makes sense. That's how I think of, allocating my investments using the barbell method.
Okay, so try to capture that. I think I got it. So the key here is to have two sides of a barbell, right? Maybe two buckets or two places or two places that you're building wealth. One of them is the reliable, consistent, not a lot of upside, something like real estate, although I guess we have to define what upside means, because you could perhaps get more upside on real estate, but but maybe just not as much as perhaps like a crypto or something that's asymmetric. They have even 1,000x kind of return, right? And I'm not quite clear on the middle part. So get stuff out. Maybe dive into a little bit more clarity on that, Paul. What you mean by that?
Yeah, let me give you an example. So for the first couple of years of my career, I was flipping houses, and what I found was that sometimes when I flipped a house, it went well, and we would make $50,000, $75,000, whatever. Sometimes we would flip a house and it would not go well, and we would lose money. And of course, you just spent 6 months and all this time and energy and effort and capital that was deployed, and you don't go anywhere. So in my mind, that is a middle of the bar bet. It might go well, but it might also go really poorly, and you don't build wealth. For a reliable, consistent, and again, maybe it's not necessarily limiting the upside. I look at it as more as like, how do we remove downside risk? And so on the reliable side, for me, that's things like rentals. We took our flipping business and we transitioned it into just a construction business where we do kitchens, basements, bathrooms, things like this for homeowners. why I decided to do that is because we take on a lot less risk when we don't have to buy the property. Yeah, there may not be quite as much upside on it as with a flip, but instead of looking at, well, how much upside does this have? I look at it as, well, how do I remove all of the downside? So I transitioned my flipping business into a construction business. Then I decided, well, if I'm going to actually take a deal down, I want it to have multiple six figures on it, multiple millions on it in order to justify the risk associated with that, right? So I'm looking for projects that have a much higher upside. And the way I reduce downside in these types of deals is through relationships, finding the right partners, finding the right structures of these partnerships so that my downside is fairly limited while I still have exposure to a really high upside. Hopefully that makes sense.